I came back from Idaho with a little bit of a sore throat and a cold. And so someone told me, you probably shouldn't drink coffee on the day that you're going to preach. It'll dry up your throat. I said, well, that's going to be really hard. I need the coffee in the morning. He goes, well, offer it as a sacrifice for the people you're going to preach to. And so this morning, after my fourth cup of coffee, I said, that's it. It's no more. And you're welcome. All right? One of the main emphases in today's readings is on sin in each of the readings. Interesting that in Easter, the time of great joy, sin is mentioned so many times today. Easter is all about redemption. And redemption is all about God's response to sin in the world. So what does redemption look like? What does it mean, like the disciples today, to experience the risen Christ? I find it interesting that after the resurrection, we always find the disciples, last week's Gospels and today, in a closed room, hidden, locked away in the darkness, full of confusion and fear. The disciples, before Christ was crucified, had all abandoned him, all gone their own way. And because they left the light, we find them in the darkness, in isolation, and in fear. This is an image of sin. This is an image of what sin does to us. Sin alienates us. It makes us feel alone, separated from God and separated from the rest of the world. It puts us in a dark room by ourselves where we feel like we're in the darkness. But in the same gospel is such a beautiful and eloquent image of redemption. What redemption looks like. Because it's in that very same room, in that locked door, within that darkness, that the risen Christ appears in their midst. The gospel says that the disciples were startled and terrified. Why? Could it be that they couldn't understand how Jesus Christ could be appearing to them in such an unworthy state, in such a dark place, in such an inconvenient time? They didn't realize that redemption must take place in the darkness. Redemption means that the locked doors can no longer keep God out. Redemption means experiencing the presence of the risen Christ shining on us in the very darkness where our sins have placed us. He's not waiting for us on the other side of the locked door. He's not waiting for us on the other side of our sins, of our brokenness, of our weakness. He comes to us in the very place where we are alone, where we are lost and confused. Because redemption means that He is the only one capable of breaking our chains and setting us free. Redemption means that we are not capable of saving ourselves. So it's not about finding our way back to Christ when we have fallen, but much more so allowing Him to encounter us in the very place of our desolation so He Himself can carry us home. One very powerful image of redemption I saw once came many years ago in a movie called Traffic. A little sub-story was a young teenage girl had fallen into an addiction to very serious drugs. And at one point she ran away from home, ended up on the streets and then on a brothel, in a brothel. And her father was looking for her everywhere. And when he was finally able to track her down, he goes into the place and he breaks into the room by kicking down the door, and he finds his daughter there laying on the bed intoxicated, man in the corner of the room. What does he do? He walks over to her and he falls on his knees by her side. And he begins to kiss her head and take her into his arms. He says, let's go home. And he picks her up and he takes her out. Redemption is messy. Redemption is very uncomfortable. Because redemption means allowing God to come to us and to find us in the very place where our sins and our brokenness have placed us, and allowing Him to love us there, to save us there, not on the other side. I was wishing we had a lot more lines in the song because it was so beautifully sung today. Over and over again, Lord, let your face shine upon us. You only see something shining in the darkness. That's what it means to experience the resurrected Christ. To experience His face shining upon us in the very place of our darkness, of our confusion, of our desolation. Not outside of it, not beyond it, not on the other side. We always want to encounter God in the light, where we're strong and independent and we're virtuous. But only those who know how to encounter His face in the darkness of their lives really know what it means to experience the resurrected Christ. So the question we can ask ourselves today is, where are the places in my life that I feel the most shame? Where are the places in my heart that I still hide from God? We can think about the sins perhaps that we confess over and over and over again that seem just too strong for us to overcome at times. Or the mistakes we've made in the past, the deep regrets we carry in our hearts. So often we want to encounter God outside of that. We're on the other side of the confessional. The truth is, He's right there with us in the darkness, waiting for us there. Redemption takes place in the darkness. Jesus Christ endured our shame, not so that He could stand on the outside of the door and shame us into coming out by showing us His wounds and saying, look at what you did to me. No. He enters into our closed room, into our darkness, and He shows us the holes in His hands and His feet, and He says, look at what I did for you to get you out of here. You were never created to be here. Let us leave this place together. You and me, and I and you. I died your death so you could live my life. Rise. Let us go. That is a voice we can hear and a face we can see every single time we come to Mass. Every single time we come to the Eucharist, we are being redeemed. It's a process. Because every time we receive Him in the Holy Eucharist, He comes to us to seek us and to find us in the deepest places in ourselves, the dark places, the wild places, to break down the doors, to show us His wounds, and to light up our darkness. That's what it means to experience the risen Christ.